There comes a time when silence becomes a form of violence. There comes a time when accepting the way things are becomes an agreement with death itself. And there comes a time when the very systems we trusted to heal us become the very chains that destroy us. That time is now. And unless we rise to declare what must die in 2025, we will continue to watch people lose not only their health, but their hope, their dignity, and their very sense of purpose. For too long, medicine has been chained to profit rather than compassion. Healing has been bought and sold, reduced to transactions instead of transformations. The human body is not a business model. The human soul is not a customer profile. When profit becomes the pulse of healthcare, humanity flatlines. What must die is the worship of money at the expense of mercy, because true healing flows not from greed, but from grace, from a higher calling to serve, to restore, to protect life as sacred. And what of fear? How many have been led to believe that their bodies are ticking time bombs waiting to betray them? Fear has been weaponized. People live under the tyranny of diagnoses, the constant whisper that something is wrong, that you are never enough, never safe, never whole. This must die because fear is not medicine, it is poison. Fear robs the heart of its peace, the mind of its clarity, and the spirit of its resilience. A system that thrives on fear has forgotten its purpose. Healing begins not when fear takes root, but when faith rises, when people learn to trust their bodies, their choices, and the wisdom within creation itself. Then there are the quick fixes. Pills that numb but never heal, procedures that patch but never restore. Bandages placed over brokenness with no intention of addressing the cause. A quick fix is not a cure, it is a cover-up, and the cost is a generation addicted to temporary relief but starving for true restoration. Healing must return to its essence, addressing root causes, nurturing the spirit, strengthening the mind, cleansing the body. Anything less is deception disguised as medicine. This trend must die. And perhaps the most tragic of all is the dehumanization of care. Patients treated as numbers, files, data points, insurance codes. Humanity stripped away in sterile rooms where voices go unheard and faces go unseen. Healing is not only physical, it is deeply spiritual. To be seen, to be heard, to be touched with compassion, to be treated as a sacred being and not as a statistic. That is medicine. Systems that strip people of dignity and reduce them to paperwork must die, because the human spirit cannot heal in an environment that denies its worth. And so we must rise with emotional and spiritual detachment, not as rebels full of anger, but as warriors of wisdom. Detachment is not indifference. It is clarity. It is the strength to say, "This is broken, and I will not attach my soul to what is killing me." It is the confidence to walk away from fear, from manipulation, from systems that no longer serve life. It is the authority to declare enough. What must die, must die. And what must live there is a sickness that does not show up on scans, a disease that no test can measure, and yet it has crippled the very soul of healthcare itself. It is the sickness of putting profit over people. This is not merely an economic problem, it is a spiritual violation. For the moment we place money at the center of healing, we dethrone the very purpose for which healing was entrusted to us. The body is sacred, the breath of life is sacred, and the duty to care for it is a calling far higher than balance sheets and shareholder meetings. Yet across the world, healing has been converted into a commodity, traded in the marketplace like oil or gold. And the tragedy is that the ones who suffer most are the weak, the poor, the forgotten, the very ones whom healthcare was created to protect. When profit becomes the measure, care becomes a calculation. Decisions are no longer guided by compassion, but by cost efficiency. The question shifts from what does the soul need to live and thrive, to how much will it cost to keep this body alive? And in that shift, humanity begins to die. You cannot serve both healing and greed. One requires surrender, the other demands control. One seeks restoration, the other exploits vulnerability. When hospitals are built as monuments of wealth rather than sanctuaries of compassion, the sick become revenue streams, not sacred beings. We have to look at this with spiritual eyes. Profit over people is not just a flawed trend, it is idolatry. It is bowing before the golden calf of wealth and asking it to do what only love and purpose can. And idolatry always leads to oppression. It enslaves doctors in systems where their gift is reduced to productivity quotas. It enslaves patients in cycles of endless bills, paying more for survival than for life. It enslaves the spirit by teaching people to equate worth with what they can afford, instead of recognizing that every life carries immeasurable value. There is no healing in a system that asks, "What insurance do you have?" before it asks, "What pain do you feel?" There is no wholeness in a system where the poor must choose between medicine and food, between treatment and shelter. There is no integrity in a system that allows a pill that costs cents to make to be sold at hundreds of dollars while lives hang in the balance. This is not healthcare. It is exploitation wearing a white coat. And what wears a white coat but denies compassion is not medicine, it is manipulation. When profit sits on the throne, it begins to choke the very life of innovation. True healing requires research born from purpose, discovery fueled by passion, breakthroughs guided by love of life. But when money dictates the agenda, research is not directed at cures, but at treatments that keep patients dependent. For if a cure is found, profit is lost. Do you see the sickness here? Systems designed to heal begin to depend on sickness for survival. And when your survival depends on the suffering of another, you are no longer a healer. You have become a parasite feeding on the vulnerable. This must die. Profit-driven healthcare is not only unjust to patients, it destroys the hearts of those who serve. Doctors, nurses, healers, men and women who once entered medicine with fire in their hearts to heal the broken are now exhausted, burned out, and burdened with paperwork, quotas, and the suffocating grip of profit metrics. The gift of healing is sacred. It is a calling that requires both science and soul. But when healers are forced to spend more time with screens than with people, when their worth is measured in billing codes rather than lives touched, their spirits break. And when the spirit of the healer breaks, the healing of the people falters. This is why profit over people must die in 2025. It must die not because profit is evil, but because when profit becomes the master, people become the sacrifice. Money was meant to be a servant, a tool to sustain the mission of care. But when it rises above the mission, it corrupts the mission. The flow of money should never determine the flow of mercy. If healing is sacred, then no dollar amount should decide who is worthy to live, who is worthy to receive treatment, who is worthy of compassion. Consider this truth. Every person carries within them the breath of life, a divine spark that cannot be priced. How can you place a price tag on a soul? How can you calculate the worth of a child's laughter restored, a mother's tears wiped away, a father's strength renewed? Yet this is exactly what the system does when it calculates profit margins before prescribing care. It reduces the infinite value of life into a financial liability. And once life is reduced to numbers, its sanctity is lost. The spiritual principle we must return to is this: healing is service, not business. Healing is covenant, not contract. Healing is an act of love, not a line item. When a healer touches a patient, it is not merely science at work. It is the meeting of souls, the transmission of hope, the reminder that life is worth fighting for. This cannot be bought, it cannot be sold. It can only be given freely with reverence for the divine image within every person. Profit over people must die because it trains us to see scarcity where there is abundance. It convinces us that care is limited, that resources are too few, that healing must be rationed. But this is a lie. The earth carries abundance. Innovation carries abundance. Wisdom carries abundance. What restricts healing is not lack of resources, but misallocation, greed, and systems designed to hoard rather than to share. When healing becomes profit, abundance is hidden behind walls and barriers, and the people are told to accept crumbs while the powerful feast. To tear down this trend, we must cultivate emotional and spiritual detachment. Detachment from the illusion that profit determines worth. Detachment from the lie that bigger hospitals and more expensive treatments equal better care. Detachment from the fear that without profit, healing cannot thrive. No, healing thrives not because of money, but because of love, compassion, wisdom, and a commitment to honor life above all else. Detachment gives us clarity to see what is truly broken, and courage to stand against it without bitterness. For we are not fighting with anger, we are standing with authority, declaring that the sacred cannot be bought. We must remember, When healing was first practiced in the ancient world, it was never about wealth. It was about service. It was about restoring balance. It was about aligning the body with the spirit and the spirit with its divine source. The moment we return to that truth, profit loses its grip. The moment we detach from greed and embrace purpose, healing can once again become a holy act. Fear is the most silent drug administered in healthcare today. It does not come in a bottle, nor does it bear a prescription label. Yet it seeps into the hearts of millions every time they are told their worth is measured by the fragility of their bodies. Fear-based medicine thrives on uncertainty. It whispers that you are broken even before you are diagnosed, that danger is waiting just beyond your next breath, that health is a privilege granted only by compliance with systems that profit from your insecurity. But fear was never meant to be the foundation of healing. Fear paralyzes, it clouds judgment, it strips a person of the inner authority to trust their body's design. Where fear lives, peace dies, and without peace, no true healing can take root. When fear becomes a business model, medicine shifts from empowerment to control. Instead of teaching people the resilience of their bodies, it magnifies vulnerability. Instead of guiding them into wisdom, it lures them into dependency. Entire industries thrive not on curing sickness, but on sustaining fear of it. Commercials speak not of hope, but of risk. Checkups focus not on wellness, but on what could go wrong. The narrative is always scarcity, always fragility, always impending doom unless you buy, subscribe, or submit. Fear keeps the system alive because a fearful patient is an obedient patient. But a fearful heart cannot carry strength. Healing begins in confidence, in the belief that life is not against you but for you, that your body was created with intelligence, not destined for betrayal. Fear must die in medicine so that faith can live. Faith not in blind optimism, but in the truth that peace restores immunity, calm strengthens resilience, and love of life fuels recovery. Detachment from fear is not recklessness, it is clarity. It is the refusal to let systems dictate your worth through shadows of uncertainty. It is the strength to say, I will not be defined by fear, I will be guided by wisdom. And when fear is silenced, healing returns to its rightful place, not as control, but as liberation.